Testing, testing.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started tonight with our workshop meeting of the Vista City Council. And we'll begin with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record should reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Green. Very
good. Councilmember O'Donnell, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please rise and remove your hats. You may begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to oral communications. Any member of the public may address the body tonight by submitting a request to speak slip, which is you'll find on the desk just outside the main doors of the council chambers. And we do have one member of the public that has so far submitted a request to speak. So we'll call on Vada Bennett right now to come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. Yes.
My request is to find a solution to the coyotes, which everybody is aware is a real problem. And I live over in Lupine Hills. They're in our yards. They're eating the pets. And I think if every city, and if you as a mayor could approach other mayors in other cities, and everybody donated just like $3,000 each, and provided for the preservation of animals, that they could hire people to capture, neuter, and spade some of these so that they stop. It's a prolific invasion that we have right now. They were here first, I understand that, but people are doing cruel things to them because they're angry because they've killed their pet or they're in their yards or whatever. And I read these stories constantly of really tragic stories in Encinitas where they tore the screen off. The coyote went in at 4:30 in the morning and took her cat, and that was on the news. So if we could do that, we could stop the enormous expansion of them, and it's kinder for the coyotes, and it helps with people not having them steal their pets and kill their pets. So I think it's a win-win situation, and if you as a mayor contacted other mayors, just think from here to La Jolla to, it's everywhere. It's in Los Angeles as well. But it's a non-cruel way to handle the situation. And then I feel like, because all I hear are these terrible, tragic stories, and I think it's a win-win situation. That way you can present the money to the organization that could do it, and they could say, well, we don't have the manpower, afford to do it. But if everybody just put $3,000 in, from La Mesa to La Jolla to all over the North County, there'd be plenty of money to hire the people to do it. And I think it would be a kind and a practical way, because all I hear is complaining, but everybody said there's no answers because they're protected. So this way, we're not hurting them. I'm hearing stories of people poisoning them and killing them and burying them in their yards, and that's not an answer. And they're having 6 puppies, and then those grow up and they're hungry, and so they're eating pets because they're hungry. And if we reduce their need for food, then hopefully, it'll solve something. And I wish Vista could be the first one to start the program. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Okay. And Imelda Huerta is going to present our staff report tonight on our only discussion item, which is a discussion about vacant city-owned properties.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the City Council. Good evening. My name is Imelda Huerta, Assistant to the City Manager, and tonight we'll be discussing city-owned properties that are vacant or undeveloped. The city currently owns approximately 220 individual parcels of land. Of these properties, the majority are currently developed with city buildings, parks, fire stations, and associated public facilities. Approximately 20 parcels consist of undeveloped or vacant properties that were set aside for environmental mitigation, drainage areas, or open space as part of a prior development or capital project. 14 of the sites are vacant or undeveloped properties that the city has either identified an intended use for or which no intended use has been identified. Staff will review each of these properties with the City Council tonight to confirm the intended land use, accept direction related to new proposed land uses, or defer use of the property to a later date. This map here shows the city-owned property in green, and the 14 sites we'll be looking at are the ones in purple on this map. So I will be going through the 14 sites, and if you would like to take note of which sites you'd like me to go back to, we can go back to them after I present the 14. We'll start with site number 1. This is at the southwest corner of Ruby Drive and Ravine Road, north of Bub Williamson Park. This is approximately 0.83 acres. The zoning is R1. It's in Council District 3, and there's currently not an intended land use for this site.
Ms. Huerta? Before you proceed with all of the parcels, we do have some public speakers that wanted to give us their thoughts before we get into the discussion. And I forgot to mention for our students that are here today, at 7 p.m. we will sign your completion of your time here for your student credit, so you can, at 7 o'clock, see the deputies in the back. And so we'll go to public speakers now, if that's all right with the council.
Okay.
And we'll start with Joe Hood tonight, followed by John Helfrich and Ann Force.
Good evening. Wonderful topic. I ask you to set priorities for each of the land, through which you filter the decisions about each of the pieces of land. Top priority should be equity. Let's deal with our unhoused folks with mini housing without parking and food through community gardens. Number 2, let's deal with our climate crisis and biodiversity, mini forests. The minimum size for a sensible mini forest is 0.44 acres, which is half the size of the smallest piece of land. Let's deploy some mini forests, especially given that we have no land available for the MSCP. Number 3, please do not choose to put parking spaces on any of these pieces of land. We should reduce parking and apply fees to parking in order to increase the North County Transit District service so that we can decrease vehicle miles traveled. And please, please don't sell any of the land or give any of the land away. Let's use it for the public. Number 4, let's consider looking for a space that could be used as a business incubator, attracting environmental companies to the city to create jobs and increase tax revenue and so forth. We could even consider canceling the lease by the court of those 2 acres and combine that space into 6 acres plus for business development. Or we could consider using that space as a community garden space. There are multiple choices, to be sure. And 5, really, really important, whatever decisions we make parcel by parcel, at the end of the process, let's apply for grants. There's an oodle of money out there from the U.S. Forest Service, from the federal government, lots of sources. The state of California, we can develop these pieces of land to the benefit of the community. Let's do that.
John Helfrich, followed by Ann Force.
City council members and city staff. My name is John Helfrich, and I'm here with Tideline Partners. I'm here today to advocate for the development of 2 city-owned sites at 444 South Santa Fe and 124 Mercantile. With the investment and completion of the beautiful South Santa Fe Capital Improvement Project, the corridor is primed to attract new retail, restaurants, and other cultural and entertainment uses. We care deeply about sustainability, smart growth, and greenhouse gas reductions, and almost never advocate for cars and parking. But in order for the corridor to capture the retail tenants it needs to fulfill its potential, a central parking lot is needed. In 2018, we redeveloped the retail building at 227 East Broadway in Vista's historic core. The lot was small and only had 2 parking spaces. We were able to lease it to Doghouse only because the nearby city-built public parking lot met the tenant's parking requirements. We have also tried leasing retail space on South Santa Fe with our Found Lofts project, and we experienced the same issues as CHW across the street: parking and lack of foot traffic. The density and local foot traffic will take time to fill in, but the parking can be addressed with the development of a public parking lot on Mercantile Street now. We have studied the site, and you should find a few layouts in your packets. We advocate for the city to develop parking infrastructure here as soon as possible to accelerate commercial and retail growth in the South Santa Fe corridor. With the completion of the Inland Rail Trail, the parking lot will also provide a good landing space or launch pad for folks using the protected Class 1 bike trail. The roundabout site is at the center of Vista's Arts District and sits at the highly visible junction of the South Santa Fe Avenue and Guajome Street roundabout. With proper design and planning, the site can be transformed into a destination where residents and visitors can gather, socialize, and engage in community events. Incorporating commercial and retail spaces on the site would provide economic support for the development would need and would help foster a vibrant space. Importantly, to bring this community space to life, the parking lot and Mercantile would need to be built. As an adjacent property owner at Found Lofts, we would love to be a partner in redeveloping this site. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Ann Force?
Hi, thank you for this topic. It's so interesting to see where these pieces of land are and what they're adjoining and what they could complement. And as for parcel 2, the large piece by the courthouse, I think the idea of having a community garden there is really great. Also, you could have a solar array, and they're south-facing slopes. So there are lots of ways you could use it for the environment. And then the piece, but the parking, I saw the 2 parking designated areas, and I thought, well, if you build a parking structure with a couple of levels, you could put solar on top. It would be a safe place, and you would get more density there instead of having it all be spread out in the downtown area. And I think there was one, the piece by the Conservancy Trail. I know there were Native American remains found there, and so it's kind of like a sacred place or a Heiau area. But you could add more trees there, and there's a lot of runoff. So the trees would absorb the runoff and also filter our air, which is getting polluted by East Vista Way and so on. Anyway, thank you again for doing this.
Thank you. And our last public speaker is on Zoom, Jim Riggenbach.
Hi, am I coming through?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about the lot at 119 Michigan Avenue. I don't know if it's on the list, but at the end of the 2020-2021 fiscal year, there was $1.2 million allocated to turn it into a parking lot. And since it hasn't been developed yet, I'm requesting that that lot be turned into a park, maybe with a couple, 2 or 3 pickleball courts. It would draw a lot more people to our downtown than a few, several parking spaces that could fit in there. Definitely want to look at turning lots into parks. If we need to add more parking, I would suggest making a parking garage. The lot at Citrus and Broadway is a perfect spot for a parking garage. Land is way too valuable and way too scarce to pave over for parking. Parking should definitely go vertical. Thank you for considering these ideas.
It's all yours, Ms. Huerta.
Thank you, Mayor. So site number one, southwest corner of Ruby Drive and Ravine Road, north of Bub Williamson Park. It's approximately 0.83 acres. The zoning is R1, Council District 3, and currently there's no intended land use. However, there may be some limited development potential due to environmental constraints. The next site is at the north side of Breeze Hill Road, adjacent to the county
Any
courthouse.
questions from council on the first parcel? You just want to, okay, very good. Okay, we'll let you run through them and then we'll come back.
No problem. The next site is at the north side of Breeze Hill Road, adjacent to the county courthouse. This is approximately 6.60 acres. Zoning is CA, Council District 3. Currently, there is no intended land use for this parcel. However, approximately 2 acres are leased to the county for courthouse parking. The next site is at the northwest corner of Avenida de Benito Juarez and Avenida de la Plaza. This is 0.22 acres. It consists of 4 lots. It's in the town site specific plan, Council District 1, and it is intended to be a pocket park or neighborhood park. The city received $1.12 million in California State Parks grant for public park purposes. Site number 4 is at 633 Lynette Circle, southeast corner of Beaubeer Drive and Lynette Circle. This is approximately 0.26 acres in the R1 zone, Council District 1, and currently no intended land use. However, it is a remainder parcel and there is an odd lot configuration. Site number 5 is at the south side of Taylor Street, adjacent to the HHW facility, and that is 0.98 acres, also zoning CA, Civic Activity, Council District 2, and it is intended to be an extension of our public works yard. Site 6 is at the east end of Townside Drive. This is adjacent to Monarch Apartments. The site is 3.26 acres. It's in the downtown specific plan in Council District 2, and there is currently not a intended land use. However, a portion of the site is planned for the Wibe Fitness Trail Park, and approximately 1.5 acres is vacant and usable. This next slide in the red, it shows the available and usable site. Site number 7 is located at 211 Palm Drive. This is at the northwest corner of Vista Village Drive in Palm. It's 0.61 acres in the downtown specific plan, currently located in Council District 1, and the intended land use for this parcel is affordable housing. Site 8 is at 902 Vista Village Drive, northeast corner of Vista Village and Palm. It's 0.45 acres in the downtown specific plan as well, Council District 1, and also is intended to be used for affordable housing. Site 9 is located at 119 Michigan. It's at the southwest corner of Vista Village Drive and Michigan Avenue. It's 0.33 acres and 4 lots. It's in the downtown specific plan in Council District 2, and the current intended land use is public parking. Site 10 is at the southwest corner of Vista Village Drive and North Santa Fe. It consists of 2 parcels, 0.17 acres in the downtown specific plan, Council District 3, and the intended land use is a trail and park. This is the Inland Rail Trail planned passive park development. Site 11 is at 444 South Santa Fe Avenue at the east side of South Santa Fe Avenue and Guajome Street roundabout. This consists of 4 parcels, 0.81 acres in the downtown specific plan, Council District 2, and there's currently no intended land use. However, it's remnant parcels acquired for construction of Paseo Santa Fe. Site 13 is at the southwest corner of Guajome Street and Mercantile. It consists of 2 parcels, 1.10 acres, also in the downtown specific plan, Council District 2, and the intended land use for these parcels is public parking as well. Site 13 is at the west side of South Santa Fe Avenue, south of Terrace, 0.09 acres in the Downtown Specific Plan, Council District 2, and currently no intended land use. This parcel was acquired for redevelopment purposes. And the last site is on the north side of South Santa Fe at the Paula Vista Roundabout. This is 0.16 acres. It's 2 parcels in the Downtown Specific Plan, Council District 2, and currently no intended land use, also remnant parcels acquired for construction of Paseo Santa Fe. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to go back to any parcels that the council would like to discuss.
Deputy Mayor Contreras, you had a...
Yes, thank you so much for going through this, and I appreciate this workshop. I think maybe we'll start at the beginning with number 1, site 1.
Okay.
So I do have something to say, and I don't know if we just want to go council member by council member through all the stuff that the individual council member wants, or if we as collectively as a group want to go site 1, site 2, and talk about it that way. Is there any preference?
If you have some broad comments, do you want to make broad comments now, and then we can go one at a time to the properties and have a discussion about them?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I think it maybe just to have a little bit more clarity of what we're talking about.
I agree.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So I'll just make a general statement. I'm really, I've said this before, and I truly believe it, that we really shouldn't be selling any more of our public land. So I think it behooves the council to go through this list and identify if the current use, well, some of them, right, that are going for affordable housing, we're already going to have like an RFP going out. So, but looking at some of these other lots that either have no intended use at this time or that are intended for parking, I really want to focus on those. But I just want to make a general statement that I'm really not in favor of selling any of our land. These pieces of property are, spread out throughout the city, and there's a lot of folks that just don't have a lot of access to open space or green space. There's a ton that you can do in such a small footprint, especially when we're looking at advancing our urban tree canopy, which is something that I think it was in the top 3 when we did our climate action plan workshop, which were really, really good workshops. So I know that, if anything, the community has grown even more hungry for more tree canopy. As it gets hotter and hotter, it's really nice to have a tree canopy near you. And as someone who walks through the city a lot, it can be difficult. Even on my route, when I walk from my house off of North Santa Fe to here, it's super hot. And there's a few places where I know that I can get some refuge in the shade and continue to walk. And I look favorably to getting to those as quickly as possible on my route. So just those are my general comments. And then should we start with item number 1?
Does anybody else have any general comments before we start with site number 1? Councilmember Melendez.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item. I am also a huge defender of public land, and I think that when we are looking at each of these parcels, we want to ask ourselves what is the greatest public use and what is the best use for that area. I think that there are people who are very zealous about parks, there's people who are zealous about parking, there's people who are zealous about housing, and those are kind of the 3 broad uses outside of a couple additional uses that we would use our public land for unless we get even more creative and have different facilities and institutions that we develop on our public land. So when it comes to our publicly owned properties, I want us to be open to maybe mixed uses for them as well, and not necessarily dedicating the entire space to one thing because it can be a dynamic space also. I am noticing, there's a couple of parcels in District 3 that I have had conversations with the community about. So I think that these are spaces people are aware of. And I've even had residents tell me, there's that, the parcel across the street from us and it's owned by the city and we're really worried that the city is going to sell it. And, I, at least on my end, have assured residents that I defend public land. And I think that unless we can, really justify putting it on the market, I don't want to do that if we can have another helpful and positive and healthful public use for that land. So that's going to be my approach. And to be honest, some of these parcels, I might not be the number one stakeholder in, right? Some of these spots are not in my immediate neighborhoods that I represent. They might be, not areas that I spend a lot of time in. So I think having a general conversation and then being able to find consensus, the entire council thinks that this space should be a park, well, then it's clear direction to staff that we're able to move forward with that. But we also can have neutrality, and I think I might find myself in a position of neutrality for some of these parcels. I don't necessarily feel like I need to have an opinion about every single parcel until there's more engagement and maybe more community insight and more stakeholder involvement so that we know really what each neighborhood wants, because these are parcels throughout all the neighborhoods in the city, and I want to be place-based as well. So those are my thoughts initially.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you, and thank you for the public for being here tonight. I actually just kind of want to echo some of the things that Councilmember Melendez had just mentioned. To have an open dialogue about the uses for these spaces, I think is very important because there are economic impacts, there are equity impacts, there are housing impacts, there are so many different things that we need to look at when we're deciphering what we want to do with these lands. I think the park study that we're going to get is actually going to give us a much greater view of what we can accomplish. So having the open dialogue tonight, I think, is a great thing. Of the 4 speakers, I can tell you, I know all 4 of them are very committed to trying to decrease our carbon footprint on our communities. And so just to the point you're making, to have that discussion, to have transparency to it, but also to be willing to have a conversation and not necessarily be a stakeholder in every single position, but trying to do what's best for the community and what's going to be best for Vista in the long run. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight and where it takes us moving forward. And those are all my comments for right now.
Deputy Mayor, did you have a few more general thoughts? No, I'm ready for number 1. Okay, very good. So let's talk about parcel number 1. Deputy Mayor, what do you think?
Thank you. This parcel is in an interesting location, not far from here. You have Bub Williamson Park, right? So, however, even though it's extremely close to the park, you can't really transverse from this corner into the park. And, years ago when I was on the other side, as a member of the public, I was really involved with the Bub Williamson Park and the folks over there. And I know that this was always brought up in their vision of what this park could be, which would be connecting this area, right? I know that this parcel is a little bit smaller, but you can see the entire riparian area, right, where there's a lot of trees. There's like a creek system there. And it would be a phenomenal little hiking trail that can be added to Bub Williamson Park. Now, to say that is one thing, and to do it is another, because there's a lot of regulatory issues when you get into waterways. So I know that it could be incredibly cost prohibitive for the city to look at doing some kind of a hiking trail, but perhaps there's the ability to patch together some kind of funding from grants and leverage some of our general fund to see what it would take maybe to make a plan that we can have shovel ready and we can, advocate to the county or to the state, to the federal government, to other organizations to see if this is something that, we can bring to fruition. But I did just want to identify this as an incredible location where you can connect these communities to Bub Williamson Park in a safe way that currently is just not available to those folks.
Councilmember Melendez.
Awesome. Thanks for those thoughts. I appreciate you being attentive to this area, even before you were elected to council. I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for preservation, right? I don't have any interest in really taking much away from this space in terms of, I'm not going to cut down all those trees and build housing there, that's for sure. What is feasible? I think that's the big question. What is possible in terms of cutting through trails? I would be very interested in that. This is close enough to current park space that it could be contiguous with that. And it's also nearby the schools, so there could be nature education as well, which I'm very favorable to. And I did receive a couple of emails from residents on this topic specifically, and I think that it's reflecting a lot of what you were sharing, Deputy Mayor, that folks in the neighborhood have been, had their eye on this piece of, mini public forest for quite some time, and there is an interest in developing a usable urban trail there. So I would be supportive of that. I think it's something that the residents would like. I think it's something that could still preserve the green space, but allow the public to have access to that green space, and just do a little bit more to expand green space in District 3, because it's really such an asset in those neighborhoods to have such a beautiful, dense tree cover right there. And I mean, I can just imagine walking underneath those trees and it being beautiful. So I would definitely be supportive of that.
Okay, I think we can move on to parcel number 2. Oh, I would say too, yeah, that looks like our miniature tree canopy forest right there, so I'm in favor of keeping that. And also, I know that we need to think about if we did anything in the riparian habitat, we'd probably have to mitigate and set other land aside, so it's probably better off to leave the riparian habitats alone. So, number 2, Chief Washington, we're going to need you for this, sir. That there's been some conversation about this site. It's been suggested that we could build a fire training facility, and we'd like to hear all about that.
All right, well, thank you for this opportunity. Good evening, everyone. With that, as I came on board to be your fire chief, in doing my research, one of the things I noticed right away that there was no fire training facility in the city or the fire district. Knowing the number of runs and the training hours that it takes to run a department like this, and that are required by some of the standards that we must adhere to, I started asking around, and it was brought to my attention that this has been discussed several times. And I received this picture, and I started talking through it with some of my command staff and others, folks from the union as well. And we were just trying to reimagine what this could possibly look like. And one of the first things that I discussed was the ability to not only make it a fire training facility, but you have the sheriff's substation, courthouse there as well with employees that need training. I understand there are some condemned tunnels, shooting ranges. And I think this would be a great opportunity to have that combined training facility. So when we say fire, I want to make it, a protective services training facility where we would share classrooms as well as the opportunity to put firing ranges for those that would need it. We also would use it for opportunities for individuals from outside to do in-house training for us. It isn't just about us as leaders within the department or even the sheriff's department, but we bring in outside talent to instruct and teach. Work with the community as well, have it an opportunity for the community to use it as it is a public building. I think the potential is endless, and it would not require the entire use of all those acres. But I think we'd be remiss if we're not discussing this or looking long range, as far as coming up with a plan as far as where we can take this. Also, I'd like to say that when I look at where we do go for training, the wear and tear on the rigs, the fuel costs, that we're moving frontline pieces of equipment to go outside our boundaries in order to get the training that would be, or the facilities that we had in-house, the return on investment would be unbelievable, and you would see that very quickly.
How many miles do we get on a fire engine? How many miles do we get on a fire engine? I know it's a lot less than you think.
Per gallon, are you asking?
No. I mean, before we scrap them, before we sell them to other agencies, we buy a brand new rig, and what do we drive?
It varies. It's not only the miles, but the pumping hours and things like that. But I can tell you, the truck.
I can't remember the exact number of miles, but we've retired quite a number of rigs from our service. I want to say it was like 100,000 miles, or it was less.
Usually that's where they start. Yeah, we start looking at and putting in reserves, and then getting frontline rigs, replacing them with frontline rigs, newer rigs. But I can tell you the truck that you purchased a couple of years ago, it has almost 40,000 miles on it. Mm-hmm. That's huge. And so we're trying to reimagine how we deploy it, as well as do we need to send it outside as much as well. So all these things we're taking into consideration. We would work with the subject matter experts to ensure that it's in the best interest of the city and its citizens, and with your approval, start moving forward and just trying to reimagine how we can do this.
Do you want to talk now, or should we have a conversation later about all the requirements for our fire service, and what do we need to do some kind of an analysis? Because I've heard the need, and but I really want to get into quantifying what the need is and what the cost benefit is, and would love to know what other similar facilities consume as far as footprint. One of the questions that I had was, how many days a year would a facility like this be in use? And so therefore, how many days would be available to the community for other uses?
Sure. And again, I can get you all the information. I'll do a comprehensive layout for you to be informed to make these type of decisions. But if you look at the annual report of Vista Fire Department and the number of training hours, it's almost 30,000 training hours just for the fire department. So when you start to add in our partners in law enforcement, and when you start to add in community opportunities as far as extinguisher trainings and other departments coming to Vista versus us always having to gas up the pacers, so to speak, and drive down to San Diego or to go to Oceanside and some of these other communities in order to get training done. Again, I think the return on investment would be tremendous. But I will do a comprehensive study for you, analysis, and get that information to you in short order.
That'd be great. I'd love to see all the numbers about what we think it would cost to build it, what it how many days we'd have for civilian use, and really quantify and get into a more detailed proposal for that use, because it is something that our firefighters have been asking about.
Sure.
So thank you very much, Chief, and we'll see if any of the other council members have a question for you.
Thank you so
Councilmember Melendez.
much for that information and your recommendation based on this available space. I would initially be very hesitant to produce a fire training facility on what is unpaved land. There are clear environmental impacts whenever you develop something that's more of a facility versus using the land for an organic use or a natural use. So that's going to be one of my priorities here today, is looking at spaces that can be preserved for natural amenities. But I was curious about, the need for fire education, I think, is really important. And I'm wondering if there are any current programs that the City of Vista offers that do fire education and teach people how to, extinguish fires in an emergency situation.
I will answer that as far as I know it right now. Yes, but I would like to do a more grander opportunity when it comes to public education, community education, when it comes to fire safety and involving different demographics, especially the underserved seniors, as far as kitchen safety, slips and falls when it comes to rugs and things like that. So internally, there is some being done, but I know for a fact, as a matter of fact, in my meeting with Mr. Connolly this afternoon, I mentioned to him that we're going to do more extensive public relations. And it's not a knock on anything that happened before I got here, but I'm a huge proponent on it. From childbirth to our underserved senior population and making sure we meet those needs of each demographic. And I think when you have a facility like this, you have those opportunities, classrooms set up to discuss stop, drop, and roll, where schools may have the opportunity to come to our training facility with classrooms which they can learn safety, prevention, education, where, again, I think the possibilities are endless. It would be just us getting together with a think tank to walk through this, look what some of the best practices are across the country, and see what fits for Vista.
Certainly. And education is certainly part of best practice. And I would say solid curriculum is key here, because we have many public facilities that could be available to do education, including partnerships with Vista Unified School District, even our own Civic Center location. This facility would be conducting training and testing that is related to chemical exposure and potential toxins for our community. And until I get more information about that, I would be very hesitant to, plop a training facility in the middle of some very important neighborhoods that also are really looking for more green spaces. So one, want to make sure that if we're paving public land for housing, for city facilities, for anything like that, that we've made sure that there's natural amenities elsewhere. But I would imagine that there are already paved public parcels that may be more appropriate to develop into city facilities, such as training and education and fire training. This particular parcel, and I don't think I have any more questions at this time, I just wanted to make sure that I shared my perspective that I would be quite hesitant about a fire facility on this particular parcel. This parcel, I've spoken with some neighbors. The property right across the street, Charlemont, was able to have a community meeting with folks over there last week. And the conversation about this parcel came up organically, right? And I kind of let everyone know that I know that this space is being used unofficially as a dog park right now. So it's not sanctioned for a dog park use, but it is being used that way. And we kind of already have a little bit of mixed use going on. There is some paved part of this public property, right, where there's a significant amount of parking that's used for the other facilities. And then we have this very walkable and accessible park. In addition to working on other infrastructure improvements like street lighting in the area, which I've been working with the city on, I think that this space can be used as a natural amenity. Folks have mentioned community gardens. Folks have mentioned a dog park and amenities for children. So I think because there are such limited amenities in the area that have been developed so far, there's just a really small amount of space over at Breeze Hill Park, which is just a block or two away. This could be an opportunity to offer a different amenity. And even from some of the speakers, right, you might have pickleball courts, which is also a paved product, pickleball courts in one area and community gardens in another area, and those are completely different uses. A dog park is a completely different use than a mini forest, right? So these are all natural amenities and outdoor amenities for the community, but I think for this particular spot, being able to preserve some green space and in fact increase the green space, there's, an opportunity to maybe enhance the landscaping in the area to be, more native plants and more attractive. And it could be as developed as a whole playground or as minimally developed as, you know, a walking trail with a dog run, right? So there's such a range of opportunities for this parcel, but I think leaving it as unpaved as possible would be a priority for me, and I know a priority for the neighbors. But I think that settles my comments for this item, and I'll leave it to the next person.
Thank you, Chief Washington, for bringing some information about a potential use. My first question is for the use that you're indicating, at least for the fire side. I don't know about having, you know, shooting range or anything like that. I think from what I've seen, this area around here is one of the hot spots for our fire department, and we seem to be utilized a lot by the county already. So I think it would behoove the county to pony up a little bit of money, and if there is to be some kind of training facility, I think that they need to help us out with that. But my question is, on the fire side, for a training facility, about how much acreage is needed? Just ballpark figure.
Sure, I would say no more than 2 acres, 2.5, because we're talking about building up 3 to 4 stories, and then a classroom that would probably seat 50 with restrooms and things like that, that we can split in half, have one class going on with whomever, and then a class that we would possibly use.
I think I definitely would want, so I don't know how much acreage we're looking at when we see the green. It looks like it's 2/3.
It's about 4 acres.
Yeah, okay. So, so on the paved side, if there was some kind of fire department use, I mean, I would really want to keep it, it certainly in my mind should not exceed 2 acres. If it were closer to 1 acre or less, you know, I think I might be a little bit more amenable to that. But, you know, at the same time, I do have a concern. I know that we need a training facility because the closest one is San Marcos, and that's kind of far. But I do have a concern about, in such a dense area, having a training facility with some of the solvents that might be used or anything like that, and then having a park use where people, you know, maybe have a little bit more activation in their body, so they're breathing more heavy, right? So that's where it seems a lot more complicated to have fire education for firefighters in the department as a complementary use to some kind of park or something like that that has more activation and physical activity occurring for the general public. So that's just some of my general feedback. I mean, I definitely, in this parcel, we went out for Prop 68 funds. I wouldn't want to compromise the ability to go back out for Prop 68 funds. I know that we weren't successful the first time around, but we have a parks master plan that we just accepted and we paid like $354,000 for. And so, you know, I want to entertain what we can do to use this parks master plan at its completion to leverage a good plan that's more competitive for the state's Prop 68 funds, where we could really have a dynamic park here for all of the increased density that previous councils zoned this for. So, yeah, I see what you're saying, but I'll keep that in mind that I think you'll be able to maybe do it in less than 2 acres. So maybe there's a facility somewhere, and I see the natural connection, right, with the other services that we have right next door. So I think it's a brilliant idea, but when we start digging into it, I have a few concerns. So I think we'll just keep our eyes out, and for me, I'll keep my eyes out for other land that might serve that purpose, maybe better away from some high density.
And I want to reassure everyone, obviously, when we talk about a training tower, the concerns are legitimate about smoke and things like this. There are standards that we have to adhere to that we just can't arbitrarily, like when I came through as a recruit, tires, couches, all those things you could burn. There is nothing like that now. A lot of it is untreated hay, wood pallets untreated, or smoke ejectors, smoke machines that create the darkness for us to do search and rescue, all the tasks that would be required at an emergency. So there would be no accelerants used or runoff worried about going into sewage and things like that. So I would want to reassure everyone of that.
I appreciate that. And I really look forward to learning a little bit more about this. And what you just described, tires and couches, actually, I went to school in Santa Barbara at UCSB, so that actually sounded like DP, like the last, that sounded like my freshman year. It's like pretty crazy. I don't think they do that so much anymore, but back in the day. So, but thank you, and that's all my comments, but I really would like to see us try to be super competitive with the 6.6 acres for Prop 68 funds and see what we can do to locate 2 acres or less that would, perhaps be more conducive to the type of fire education that you're speaking of.
Thank you. And Chief Washington, thank you for being here and answering our questions. I know the need. I've talked extensively with our firefighters about it for quite some time. So I agree with the Deputy Mayor on something. I actually like your idea of, if we're going to look at this space, maybe look at the part that's already paved, so we aren't taking away any more green space or landscape from our community. One of the things you had mentioned when you first had brought this up, though, is that you noticed this space right away. Is there a reason that you picked this one out particularly versus any other parcel we might have available in the city?
It was just due to the fact of the joint training facility, because again, you want to get the biggest bang for your buck. And actually, I'm actually in one of the apartments right there too, so I go by it every day. So, to be fair,
short drives. That's good. You already answered my question that was posed: is how much acreage you would need. You said between 2 and 2.5. I really would be interested in seeing what the facilities would look like, a deeper dive into what not just the cost is, but what the benefit is, right? So you had mentioned 30,000 hours, but how often are our firefighters leaving with our rigs and whatever other vehicles they might need to go to training? And do you know?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Do you know how often we're actually sending people out to train?
I gotta say, this is probably one of the most important things I've seen as the fire chief here. The training that the individuals on our department do is daily and multiple times a day. And it's on the station and the shift, and they're bringing in other departments to train with. I've never seen anything like this before. It's quite impressive. It's nonstop. And then when you talk about having probationary employees, this is also an opportunity for us to have a pipeline when we're looking to onboard individuals into the fire and EMS service. When you talk about interns, when you talk about explorers, and then it's that natural progression into probationary firefighters. Now we have a training facility for those interns and explorers that we don't have to send them out to other departments to borrow their towers. Battalion Chief Sweeney mentioned it to me the other day that we had a probationary employee that had to be tested out on some things. And I want to make sure I don't say the wrong thing, but I believe they had to go to 2 different locations that were quite a bit apart in order to accomplish those tasks for those probationers, that probationer that day, to meet the mark. And so again, when you talk about the time that's committed, the fuel, the rigs, and the wear and tear, wherever it is, wherever this facility is, it should be one-stop shopping for us.
And is there a cost that are we renting the facilities from San Marcos or Ocean or wherever we're going, or is that something that they're donating to us?
We do pay basically rental fees to Oceanside and San Marcos for the use.
Do you know how much that is offhand?
It varies. It's basically by hour, so it's a time and use situation.
So in theory, if we were to create this facility, we might be able to actually bring our own funding in through renting it out to other agencies.
That's what I envision, yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm supportive of trying to, and this is a different topic for a different time, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Absolutely.
I definitely would like to get county funding of some sort if we can, or any grant money, because I know this sounds like an expensive project. But as far as this location, I would really need to see what the options are before I'd be supportive of it there, but I really appreciate the time and the conversation.
Thank you.
Councilmember Melendez, I just want to say, what I'd like to see is, could we agree to ask staff to internally take the time to come up with more information on this proposal before we go hiring any contractors, spending large amounts of money to get in, start designing buildings or something. But could we ask them to have a preliminary review internally, bring us this information, whether it's this site or another one, help us to better understand the cost-benefit scenario of, is this a facility that we need in Vista? What would the benefits be? And also probably we could examine in there at some point the environmental impact and community impacts. Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, everyone, for this discussion. I think I appreciate what you're saying, Mayor, making reference to this site or another one, right? That to truly identify, is there a need? And I'm making a note here that it's San Marcos and Oceanside are the next closest facilities that offer any kind of training. We don't necessarily have community access to those training facilities, but our firefighters are able to access them. And so I really want to know what is truly necessary. The development of a facility is expected to be costly, and we already share so many resources amongst our various fire departments in each of our cities. We have dropped borders, and we're making calls across city lines. So I think that in consideration of a training facility being developed here in Vista, I want to at least be aware that administrative changes could happen in the long term that are related to a regional consolidation of our fire service based on the available resources that we have. And training is significantly important, as well as many other staffing and facility needs are important. So there's a lot of different priorities. And looking at the long term, I want to make sure that any investment in a facility is well warranted. I do also want to make a note that I support our firefighters, and they are being exposed to cancer-causing and toxic chemicals all day long on the job. And even natural wood does release hexane, which can have negative health impacts. So I would want us to be thoroughly studying the health impacts of a training facility as well.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Yeah, just to your point, Mayor Franklin, I do believe that we need to, so that way you have majority of folks that would go down this route, but I do believe that it is necessary for us to take a look at the information that our chief is bringing to us and see if there is, like Councilmember Melendez said, if the need is warranted for a training facility and what that would look like, right? What types of training are necessary. Also taking into account that broader perspective of other fire departments, because if we're going to be leasing something out and having some kind of income from it, I would think that it would have to be something different than what is currently available, right? So very just like keen on looking at the picture in a holistic way, and looking at perhaps, I wish that we could find a site that was further away from, the density and maybe more zoned industrial or commercial. That's not so close to where there's a lot of people living. It just really sucks that this site is so close to this other use that could be very compatible together. But I just think if there was something that we could find somewhere else that was a little bit further away from density, I feel like it would be a little bit more conducive, because I don't also want to get then, a bunch of complaints further down the line from folks about it being too loud, it being used excessively, right? And all we wanted was a park, and you all had to come down and, put this training facility in the middle of my neighborhood. So I could already hear it coming, right? So that's why if there's somewhere that's maybe more industrial focused, I feel like, hey, let's look to see if we have a need for it. It sounds like we do, but let's get some more data, like the mayor stated. And let's see if there's potentially somewhere else that would be a little bit better and further away from folks that are just trying to have a good quality of life day to day and want you to be ready, right? They expect the fire department to be ready to come help them, but maybe they don't want to be next to the training grounds for that. So just, that's my comments.
That's very fair. I totally understand and respect those views because there's a lot of truth to that. I totally understand. I think the biggest thing for me is just this discussion that, getting you the information that you requested and going from there. So this isn't something that, we're married to, so to speak. We're obviously open to suggestions, but just the opportunity to discuss this and see where we can go in the future with it. It's a great jump off point for me. Thank you.
Councilmember Melendez?
Thank you. And I don't want to discourage the initiative at all, right? Because I really do see this. I think that you brought up a good point. I see this more as an industrial use. And I would just be really remiss to place that there. So I'm not personally interested in having the staff study this location, but I am interested in having our city staff study just a general need for training facilities, and then for us to talk about where that would be appropriate. I would love to see if there's consensus amongst the council for dedicating, and I imagine there is, I hope there is, at least a portion of this 6.6 acres, including a parking lot, to some sort of natural amenity, right? And that, like I said, could be so many different things. It could be community gardens to dog trail to tot lot to pickleball courts to so many other things. So if we're interested in committing some of this space, maybe not even all of it, to natural amenities and outdoor amenities, I would be very much advocating for that.
So I'm with you on that. I'd like to see some more outdoor amenities on this site, whether it's a park or something akin to a park. One of the things we have to consider, and we probably should have had a topographical map on this one, this site is extremely challenged as far as the grading goes, as we all know. It's not a flat piece of land. But given that we have a large acreage there, I would like to see that very dense neighborhood in Breeze Hill have more outdoor amenities. So I think we'll see in our park study maybe some options for this piece of land. I think we could probably all agree we'd like to see that. Who knows when our lease goes on the parking? How many years has that got left on it?
I asked the city attorney to look into that and get back to us, so I'll report back to you on that.
Assume they've got options too. That's
Sure they do.
By the way, the sheriff did mention to me this parcel when the city manager and I met with the sheriff, and so they're potentially interested in some kind of partnership, and also, there's talk of a pretty significant renovation of the jail facility in Vista. We really need better, newer jail facilities that are better equipped to handle mentally ill, and better facilities so that we don't have the kind of, the overdose deaths and other things that have been happening in the jails. So the sheriff is looking at that, and so that's something we'll also want to consider is I think we should have a conversation with the sheriff and hear out whether or not they've been thinking about something here. Obviously, this land has unique adjacent value to the court complex, and we want to consider being partners there and making sure that we're considering what their needs might be, at least hearing them out. We don't have to do what they want, but we should probably at least hear what the county thinks is, is important for this parcel for them. So, Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Yeah, this is a really good conversation. I'm glad we're having it. I have a question, and I just want to get a little bit clarification from City Manager. When we did go out for Prop 68 funds, were we putting the 6.6 acres in totality for that? Even though the parking is kind of not within our control, it seems like at this time.
No, that's correct. The Prop 68 grant just looked at the undeveloped portion of the property.
Okay, and that was about the 4 acres.
Correct.
Well, I mean, I 100% stand by the 4 acres being some kind of natural use in perpetuity. So I just want to make that clear. On the other portion, there might be a little bit more flexibility, especially because it doesn't look like we have a lot of flexibility with it right now. So, but I do want to stand by Councilmember Melendez's a plea for ensuring that we do dedicate what is currently green space to continue to be some kind of natural green space, whatever that might look like in the future. And hopefully we are successful moving forward after our Parks Master Plan. But thank you so much.
Last thing, Chief, I'd like to make sure that you have a conversation with your fellow chiefs in the North County area and ask them if there are training facilities that they'd like to see built, that they'd like to have access to. Obviously, if Oceanside and San Marcos already have their own facilities, it doesn't sound extremely promising that they're going to be driving away from their facility to come use ours. So, I mean, maybe if we build something that they don't already have, but it would seem probable that that's a lower likelihood. So which of our neighboring agencies do we think might be a customer for a joint use or for leasing out our facilities? And I'm not asking you to answer that right now,
no,
just to
understood.
consider that in your investigation.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you,
will add
Chief.
that in there. Yes. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Okay, anything else on this property before we go to site number 3? Seeing none, let's go to site number 3.
So if I may, Mayor, ask a quick question,
Please.
or City Manager, or City Attorney. Just so we're clear, on this site number 2, there's more research for staff. The direction was for staff to conduct more research on the fires training facility and to look at,
Yeah, sounds like it's decoupled from this particular site,
got it.
so.
Mayor, if I may, what I heard was evaluate a fire training facility on another more industrially located property, but bring you back a study that evaluates our options.
Well, and I don't think we should rule anything out, and I understand your concern, absolutely, but let's investigate the concern. I'm not for this or against this. I have no idea. This is something the fire department has asked for, so, I don't want to tie their hands if this is the best place for it, if there's a joint use with the sheriff's department that really makes it logical. I'd like to hear about that, and then if we don't like what we hear, then we can decline it at that time. I'm not for it or against it right now. I just, this is what was identified, and I'd like to just get more information and give them the ability to pursue it and come back to us. Deputy Mayor Contreras?
Yes, Mayor. I just wanted to ensure that what I'm hearing is correct, or maybe I should just ask the question. So with what you just said, would then you be supportive of what City Manager Conley said, that the council majority seems to want to take a look to see if this is a need?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, because I wasn't sure if you were moving away from that or reconfirming it.
I have no idea if this is a need or not.
Okay.
The firefighters have told us that they would like it, but, honestly, I have no idea what the dollars,
Right.
the man-hour considerations, the environmental considerations, ability to lease it. I mean, there are a lot of big questions. So without basic answers to these extremely big questions, I don't know how any of us be in a place to render an opinion on it just yet.
Right. So you're in favor of getting answers to those questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
that's-
So it seems like there's consensus on that.
Yeah.
So next question then, if we have another opportunity for, say, a Prop 68 grant on this property, would you like to make sure that we get through this analysis first before we apply for future grant money for using this site for park space?
Well, Mr. Conley, could you tell us, based on what you're hearing here, what kind of scope of dollars and man hours that you think would be appropriate to invest in this inquiry?
I'm going to guess it'll take us 4 to 6 months to come back with a comprehensive report.
Yeah.
And I think we can do most of that in-house.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions to ask and answer and a lot of conversations to have with other agencies, but, you know, very likely we could get into some outside analysis if we really want to understand the cost benefit. Of course, I'm always concerned that every time we go out of house for a consulting contract, it seems to be another $500,000. So that's a magic. Actually, it's about $320,000 to $380,000, and then there's generally an option for another $150,000.
So we'll bring back in-house analysis, and if it calls for some additional analysis, we can get feedback from the council on that budget.
That's fair. Deputy Mayor Contreras?
I just want to say that I would not be in favor of holding up the ability for this to become a park. That to me would be like the primary driver for this property that we're looking at. But certainly, you know, that's going to take a long time too. So we might be able to get the in-house review before we, you know, even get to resubmit it with a competitive plan. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a big enough parcel. There could be a park and something else, or nothing else. It could be just all a park. There's such a consideration for grading. I mean, it's going to be several $1 million to get this land to where you could build anything on it or have level ground, even to have a pickleball court. So, you know, that's a big consideration too. Is that something that we're going to be looking at in our park plan? Are we going to be looking at, I would call it rough estimate of preparation costs for these sites? In other words, if we wanted to turn them into a park, can we ballpark what it would cost to just get to ground level so we could then build the park on top of it?
So we're going to get a needs analysis back, which dictates what the park needs are, and then it would be up to most likely a public process to design what kind of park you'd want to have here. At that point, we could give you a cost estimate. If you just wanted us to give you an estimate of flattening the entire site, we could do that now, but that's probably not likely the scenario.
Probably not necessary. Councilmember Melendez.
I'll just clarify that I would still be in the same place where I'm not interested in entertaining a fire training facility that involves the use of controlled burns in this location, because I am of the opinion that that is a more industrial use. However, I am in support of some kind of mixed use, right? Some sort of community service facility. You brought up mental health. I think that that's really important. There's all sorts of resources that are adjacent to the court. So I think that an expansion of services where there's facilities where people can come and receive services is wonderful, right? And having a mixed use of a park space and then facilities is something that I'm very interested in. And the county is a stakeholder because they're the next door neighbor as well. So considering that with a non-industrial use, right, a more community service oriented use, I'm open to that. But at this time, I am not interested in seeing the feasibility of a fire training facility at this location. If somebody, you know, wants to really chew my ear off with more information about how it's not going to be harmful to the community, they can go ahead and do that. But where I stand right now during this meeting, I would say that I'm supportive of looking at the need for fire training facilities and would be happy to entertain other properties for that.
Yeah, I 100% hear you. I'm just saying, primarily, the way I understand the direction we're giving is to examine the cost benefit of creating such a facility without regard necessarily to where it will be located, and then to just leave all the options on the table because we are at such an early moment in thinking about this project. But absolutely understand your concerns and understand you probably wouldn't be in favor of that facility on this site. But I just like to hear all the facts and consider all the options. And we're still at a very preliminary point of considering the concept. So, Councilmember O'Donnell.
So just to kind of add on to that, I do not want to lose any grant funding or pause the process for this project. But as we're reviewing all of this, we have the acreage that we could potentially use. I would like to see in that study or in that information if there's any facilities that are under 2 acres that are utilized for the same purposes in which they're asking us to create this space for. If those are available, and if we have other parcels available in the city that are more industrial or that may not have as great of an impact on residents, it'd be interesting to see where they'd be located or what the options would be. So just to add on to that is all I wanted to do.
Very good. Any other comments on site number 2? Seeing none, let's go to site number 3.
Okay. This is at Avenida de Benito Juarez, currently slated to be the Avenida de Benito Juarez Pocket Park. I did want to note that staff is working on doing some community engagement next month at this site.
When did council discuss this site last, and when was the park designation? Did council direct staff at some point in the past to designate?
The grant they did come to council for approval. I don't have the exact date. However, there will be extensive community engagement as far as the park is concerned. But
it was last year. Very good. Deputy Mayor Contreras, thanks for the background.
thank you.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to say about this because we already have committed to a park here, so I don't think there's much that we can do. I think that's a great use, and I really look forward to seeing this come to fruition. And it's great because the Boys and Girls Club is just right up the street, and then you have the schools in close proximity. So this is something that we were able to get Prop 68 funds for. So
Correct.
It was very competitive, and I can't wait for it to come to fruition. I will say that it is incredibly dark in this area, and when we brought up our whole lighting situation, this is an area that needs a lot more lighting, It's just incredibly dark. And it would be great to have sidewalks built out in this area as well.
Yes, there will be some sidewalk as part of the construction of the park.
I want more, though. Some is good, but I want more all the way to the
We have a
Boys and Girls
sidewalk
Club.
project, I believe. Matt, do you know about the Benito Juarez sidewalk project? Can you fill the council in real quickly on what we are doing out there? Sorry, this is Matt Atterbury, our capital projects manager.
Good evening. So we are currently in design for a sidewalk along the east side of Avenida de Benito Juarez from West California all the way to Avenida or Connecticut. And so that's supposed to be probably going out to bid in the next few weeks.
Okay, but nothing on Avenida de la Plaza, except for the
No, just
a little bit of.
Just a crossing there.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to throw a pitch. This is my district, so of course I'm gonna be all over it. I'm just gonna throw a pitch out there for Avenida de la Plaza to be at least from the corner of Benito Juarez and Avenida de la Plaza, for that section that's along the park frontage to have a sidewalk that goes all the way to the Boys and Girls Club, which is what, maybe like at the most a half a mile. It looks, I want to say it's probably a quarter mile. That would be great because there is, I mean, so many folks utilize the Boys and Girls Club for a variety of things, and we were able to get state funding to build a state-of-the-art facility for soccer. So I imagine that more folks are going to utilize that, and it would just be great if overall with our parks, and this is probably something that's a little bit more housed in our Parks Master Plan discussion, but to ensure that there's good circulation to our parks for pedestrians, I think is very necessary. And what that means is having a sidewalk and having good lighting, and potentially having, some kind of bike infrastructure as well. So thank you. That's all I have for this parcel.
Okay, seeing no other thoughts on site number 3, let's go to site number 4.
Okay, this is the odd lot configuration on Lynette Circle.
Deputy Mayor.
All right, this one's in my district too. And so I actually, I walk my dog along this area at night because I don't want to fry his little paws, during the day. But it would be great to have some kind of a pocket park here that also has bags for dog waste and a place to, throw the dog waste away. But because it is such an odd configuration for anything other than a natural use, I feel like, it's probably too small to consider for a dog park, but maybe just a little pocket park that does have the ability, because we are missing, a lot more folks have dogs and they walk them, and I think we're missing meeting their needs. We don't have a lot of waste facilities, and we don't have a lot of places where people can get bags, right? And usually those are housed in the same thing, right? That little structure that we have that has bags, and then you can throw it away. But I think that this would be a great area to have some kind of a pocket park, perhaps with a little bit more density of a tree canopy and a bench for people to sit at, and a dog waste little pole thing. So, and maybe just like a little bit of lighting, solar powered lighting, something like that. So yeah, I think it'd be great. It'd be a great refuge on the Beaubier corridor.
Councilmember Melendez.
I think that even though it's a funny shaped little parcel, for some reason the city owns it. And so why not have the highest possible public benefit and use of it? This parcel kind of reminds me of a couple other spots throughout the city. And I think we're going to get to them in a couple of minutes. But we have a lot of wonderful service organizations in the city. We have, areas that have been beautified by our Vista Rotary Club. We have spaces that have been enhanced by the North County and Vista Seroptimus group. So I would be curious, when it comes to actually producing something for the public to benefit, of course, we have park funds available, we can go out for grants, but what are our options in, even making it a project that is in collaboration with a local service organization, especially if it's a smaller area and there doesn't necessarily need to be a lot of development, right? Maybe a few waste structures, a few benches, some gravel paving, and maybe a little bit of landscaping, right? If it's a small enough area, it might be able to be enhanced by a community organization. I'm not sure if that's possible. Maybe city manager, you could speak to that.
Sure, we can look at having a volunteer organization. We do, allow them to work on city property. We just have to make sure they're willing to accept liability for their work.
Sure, and maybe at least bring the community in on agreement of what a plan could be, right? And then when it comes to the manpower and the the materials to be funded for something like this, since it's so small, right? I'm wondering if there's, I've just seen really impressive work by some of our local service organizations, and I'm wondering if we can even expedite the use of this parcel for more public benefit if we partner with one of those groups. So I would be supportive of this area as a park, and I'm curious to see if one of our local orgs would like to help enhance it.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I love your idea for a pocket park. I would just say, everybody always says these spaces are too small for a dog park, right? And I could see this, you just throw a fence around it and people can let their dog run around. My only concern would be balls flying over a fence along the street. But, I mean, this space probably isn't much bigger than the actual dog park without the trail at South Buena Vista. So, I mean, whatever use you'd intend for, I think it could work for either one. But I think a pocket park is a great idea for this location.
Okay, seeing no other comments, we'll move on to site number 5. And do we have any public works intended purposes for this land?
So the Public Works Director is not here tonight, but I did talk to him about this site. They do intend to expand the yard into this area, so future space for vehicular parking and storage of materials for the yard.
Yeah.
They're really outgrowing their space, and so they're looking at moving the HHW facility over and then making better use of this space next to the existing yard.
Yeah, and I would just say that even though it's not a very sightly use of it, it's a necessary one for the Public Works Department. So we probably want to maintain Public Works' option to use this land for their purposes. Deputy Mayor Contreras.
I'm sorry, Public Works, but this is becoming a dog park. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Just a clarifying question. I'm totally for keeping this as a proposed expansion of the Public Works yard. Is there already funding that we've allocated to enhance this property?
We have not, well, yeah, actually, I should clarify. We have allocated some funding to it. It's
Right.
not fully funded. I believe we have about $3 million set aside for this facility at this point.
Okay, and what was the total needed? Was it like 5?
The estimate was 5.
Okay, I'm just trying to remember correctly through all my files.
That's
My
correct.
brain. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're already committed at $3 million deep to what's, proposed expansion of the Public Works yard. So I'm totally fine keeping that. I just wanted to make sure for the record that we all remembered that we committed money to it.
Okay, moving on to site number 6.
Okay, this is by Monarch Park. As mentioned earlier, part of it is going to be with a park. It's a fitness trail that will be constructed, 0.8-mile loop, I believe. The next slide here shows the usable space that, for discussion tonight.
That being the space outlined in red.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
I have been committed to this being a park still, or an extension of the Conservancy Trail. I think it's a great location for us to even look within our climate action plan if we need to have additional mitigation and have kind of enhance this area. That there's not that many oaks around there anymore. So planting some native plants, I think could be great. It's a shame that we don't have access to the easement because, if the proposal that we had for this project that came from Monarch was, I think, for me, it was unsatisfactory in the amount of affordable housing. But if the city were to be able to look at this land for 100% affordable housing, that would be a different conversation. But we have never gone down that path because of the easement issue. So, if it's not 100% affordable housing, then I think it needs to be an amenity for the public as open space and some more native habitat. I mean, there's not a lot of pieces of land that we can say we could just dedicate to native plants and bringing them back. It could be an incredible area that could, really serve the public in so many different ways. So I just wanted to restate my commitment that I really do think that this is a natural extension to the Conservancy Trail that a lot of folks use to walk, to bike, to walk their dogs. And even the folks that live at Monarch, the space that they have isn't sufficient enough for the type of activities that they want to do with their canines, so they take them on the trail. So that's, and perhaps it could be, walk your dog to a dog run. It's not too far from parking. It's not too far from Wildwood. So yeah, those are my comments.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
City Manager, have we had any more discussion with Monarch about that easement? If they'd be willing to hand it over if we were to, say, build our own affordable housing, or if we were to create an extension of the park or the Conservancy Trail?
They have expressed a intent to work with us on access if there is a public use identified, like a park or recreational use. They indicated initially that they would not work with us on access for affordable housing on this property.
Okay. I would actually agree with you. I had gone over it. We had this discussion months ago. I would probably prefer to see this remain the way it is and then be developed into some type of trail or park or some amenity for the community. But I would be interested in knowing if we were to go after our own affordable housing there, if that may change the dynamic of the conversation as far as that easement's concerned, because my understanding is that they were unfavorable to any other housing going in there if it was not their own. So I'd be interested to see what they'd say on that.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you. This is probably one of the larger parcels on the list here, so it's a huge asset. Very challenging to have a neighbor next door that is holding the easement hostage, even if it comes to such an important public use, such as deed-restricted affordable housing or government-subsidized housing, which, if you actually think about it, would be very contiguous in this area because there's already denser housing right next door. So I would like to revisit that conversation about affordable housing, capital A affordable housing, right? Deed restricted, likely using low-income tax credits and other forms of financing to allow for this to be affordable for decades upon decades. And because of our state mandates for housing, because of the high need and burden of housing for our community, I would be very interested in the legal implications or considerations related to eminent domain of being able to access this public land for highest possible public benefit. I absolutely believe that there should be some sort of outdoor and natural amenities here, and this could even be used for environmental mitigation because there's so much space. But it's a piece of land that is absolutely appropriate for housing. I just don't think that public land should be sold for market rate housing development. And if we're even interested, and it sounds like some of us are interested in affordable housing on public land, I don't know if city attorney can speak to the realities of eminent domain to be able to access this public space.
I would have to take a look at, but the eminent domain, we would have to show that the government has a primary need for it, and then basically we'd have to pay fair market after we have had arm's length negotiations and have come to a standstill. So those are generally the requirements for eminent domain.
Okay. with or without that conversation, I think that there's a big difference between a market rate competitor next door. We're not interested in selling this property to another market rate competitor. There's a difference between Monarch having a market rate competitor next door and a publicly owned housing property next door. So I would be hopeful that they're interested in seeing that there's a difference between those things and be willing to have an open conversation and dialogue about that. Regardless, it's an incredible natural amenity, and I think that more to be looked at and maybe more conversations to be had, but I would be favorable to its use for affordable housing, outdoor and natural amenities, and mitigation for other projects.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
And if I remember correctly, the fair market value when it was assessed of the easement was like $89,000. I want to say it was around there.
I'd
Yeah.
have to look. That's,
Okay.
I'm not remembering, but that sounds about right.
I think it might be right, but I'm not sure. So yeah, I mean, I think, you have 3 council members that are 100% in favor of if this were 100% deed restricted affordable housing. Let's take a look at that. Outside of being 100% deed restricted affordable housing, then it looks like the second highest best use is to keep it as a natural amenity and to enhance it, because right now it's just a scraped basin. So we definitely don't want to leave it in its now unnatural state, but take it to a place where it is in alignment with the Conservancy Trail. Thank you.
Okay, that will take us to site number 7. You turn your microphone on.
These are 2 lots located in the downtown Pacific Park, Vista Village Drive, and Palm Drive. This has been identified as a potential site for affordable housing.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
I have nothing to say on these. I think the affordable housing is already on its way. I believe council did approve these 2 lots to move forward with an RFP. Whether or not that comes to fruition, then we could rediscuss these 2 parcels. But at this time, I think it's kind of locked in. From my perspective, I don't know if my colleagues have a different perspective, but from my perspective, it's already locked into looking what we can do for affordable housing on this corridor.
Okay, that'll take us to site number
8.
8.
Yes, 902 Vista Village, also identified for affordable housing.
Deputy Mayor.
And I actually meant to say when we talked about the number 7, I meant to couple 7 and 8 because we've already, voted on that. So.
And that will take us to number 9.
Yes, this is 119 Michigan, intended land use, public parking.
Deputy Mayor.
All right. So seeing as this is planned for public parking, where are we at on that process?
This one's on the back burner. We just have a lot of projects going through engineering, capital projects right now. So it's probably a year and a half, 2 years out, where we are right now.
Okay. And there were some site challenges here, right, with the elevation?
There are. We were only intending to develop the westerly portion where the parcel line is in the middle there with parking, and the rest of it would be most likely landscaped, and improved, but it's too thin to get parking in that easterly portion of the site.
Okay, westernly, where it says 119?
Yes, correct. I'm sorry.
All right.
Left side.
I mean, first I'll say that I'm not in favor of putting parking lots everywhere, but I am more in favor of having parking lots if they have a solar component. So anywhere that we decide to put a parking lot, and I've heard, from the public have, parking garages, but those are incredibly expensive. I think it's, north of $75,000 per parking space, which is extremely expensive. So Yeah, I think it would be, if we moved forward with the westernly portion where it says 119 there being parking, that it would be, it's almost like mitigating for the parking by having solar. So I think that would be good. But since we can't do anything with the easternly part, which is that narrow wedge, I think, it's just such a congruent to the portion where the sidewalk is, that would be great to have, an additional shaded place to sit. A lot of people walk through here, and I think both sides of Vista Village need to, wherever we can, provide a lot more tree canopy and places for people to sit down and, maybe even a bench, kind of like you would have in a different park, right? Because I could see folks, even ordering to go and maybe meeting up with friends and just sitting there under a canopy and eating something good from Main Street. But I think we should, if we know we can't use it for parking on this portion of it, then we should just move forward with opening it up to the public. That would be my direction.
Councilmember Melendez.
Great. I think that there's definitely a need for more parking, and I like the idea of parking going vertical. But you made a comment, Deputy Mayor, at $75,000 per parking space. That's if it were a structure, City Manager? And if it were a flat top parking lot, how much per space in that case?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, but it's closer to like, $10,000 a space maybe.
Still, it's good for the community to know that
Yeah.
each parking spot on just like a flat parking lot is around $10,000. That's wild. I'm digesting that right now. I'd say that I really like the idea of solar mitigating for parking because, there's even the potential of being able to have a local solar project that can even provide charging for electric vehicles if there were electric vehicle stations there, and we could produce some of the power to charge electric vehicles at this parking lot. And then that corner of North Citrus and Vista Village, I think a picnic area is a great idea. We've seen just over the past couple months, the area along Citrus be so activated by recent pop-ups from Food Truck Fridays that have been permitted. And I think that it just showcases how much people love to be in our downtown, and they like to do so in a variety of ways. And a lot of the outdoor eating areas, are only really accessible if you buy food from that particular restaurant. And not every restaurant has outdoor seating areas. So if we're able to establish little pockets of picnic areas downtown, I think that would be really attractive and honestly fun. So I understand the need for parking in that area. I think the price is incredible. But hey, it could be mixed use. It can be picnic and a little bit of parking in the back there.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if we have all that unusable space on one side that can't be used for a parking space, to get more people activated in downtown, to bring them there, give them amenities to go eat in certain places or just be able to sit in a shaded space and enjoy everything we've done to downtown in the last decade, I think would be great. I would love to see solar on top of any parking structures we try and move forward with. I think that's not just something I'd like to see. I think it's a requirement just because we need it, especially for the movement towards EV charging and all the other things that are going to be coming in the future. Just to give you a little pencil on the back of the envelope math, for the public to know, it's going to be somewhere about $10 to $12 million to build a 250 space parking structure. So it is extremely expensive to go vertical with any parking structure that we would build.
Deputy Mayor.
And I do want to talk about one type of parking that we have not talked about at all, which is bicycle parking. So I think that this would be a great area to also have a little bit more bicycle parking in our downtown. And then, looking in the future, can we have, if we do parking that has solar and has EV charging, is there also the potential for folks to be able to charge, an e-bike? I don't know what that looks like, but I think we have to start thinking about that, especially as the state moves closer to finalizing the e-bike incentive program. It's $10 million with probably a lot more that's going to be committed to it, and some folks here in Vista might qualify for that. So we definitely see more and more folks using e-bikes, and when incentives are brought out, so we saw that with EVs. When there were incentives for EVs, you had a higher rate of adoption. So I would expect to see something like that with our e-bikes. But yeah, we just don't have enough bike parking downtown, and make it like very functional bike parking. And I will even say, I don't know if this would be good here in this location, but outside of the city of Oceanside City Hall, they have a really cool bike parking. It looks like a greenhouse, but it's a great facility where you can park your bike. And I ran into it when I got to NCTD a little bit early from the Sprinter. So I was just walking around, and I saw it, and I didn't know it was there. It was really cool looking. So I don't know if that fits here. It's pretty small. I don't know if it would fit with the aesthetic or if there's a need for that much parking. But I think it might be good to look at different types of bicycle parking that are very functional. Thanks.
That'll bring us to parcel number 10.
Yes, this is at the southwest corner of Vista Village Drive and North Santa Fe. Its property is within the future alignment of the Inland Rail Trail. The city is currently planning to develop a passive park at this site at the time the IRT is developed.
Councilmember Melendez.
So here's a great example of Seroptimus providing some amenities in this parcel. And in terms of timeline, if this is expected to be passive recreational space, or passive park, meaning probably benches and rest stops essentially for Inland Rail Trail riders and transit users, and all the hustle and bustle of our little downtown, right? Being able to have more rest stops, I think, is really appropriate. What would be the expected timeline for that?
Sandag's indicated it's probably going to be 2 more years before we see construction out there, 2025.
Till we get to our development of this portion.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think that there's some ways in which this can be enhanced now. I think that this is already appropriate for more of a rest stop for people. I frequently walk this path to get to downtown, and sometimes even to walk to the Civic Center from where I live, near the Vista Transit Center. And I see a lot of activity, and I would like to create, especially in areas where we expect there to be a lot of pedestrian travel, places of refuge for people. And the tree coverage in this spot really does provide some nice refuge, but enhancing that with some more bench and seating infrastructure, I think would be really nice. I'm not sure what everyone else thinks. It sounds like we're going to have some more thorough investments and improvements to this area, but between now and 2 years from now, can we add a few rest stop amenities? That might be nice.
Deputy Mayor.
I totally agree with you, but I will also say that this is an extremely dark little area. So when you're walking at night, it kind of stands out in how dark it is when you're going around this corner and walking through. Do we have plans already of what it would look like for the Inland Rail Trail portion? Because I haven't seen those.
It's in design still for this
Okay.
last section.
So is that something that the city has input
Minimal, I would say, but we do have an opportunity to provide input at Sandag's project.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. Well, I think lighting is necessary, so
I believe there will be lighting along the trail in this segment, at least that's what's planned, but I'll follow up with Sandag staff on that.
yeah, that would just be an absolute must. We definitely need to have lighting there. There's like a defunct water fountain, if I'm correct in my remembering of it. It would be great to have a water bottle filling station here. I don't know how easy that is, if it's that that fountain is so defunct that it'd be very costly to put a water filling station here. But I thoroughly have enjoyed the one at Luz Duran Park, and something like that I think would do really well here. And I also do like the kind, and I haven't seen this here, that also has a dog bowl on the bottom. I feel like we probably might want to invest in having not only the water filling station for the water bottle, but also the one that has a little dog bowl on the bottom. I will say though, there seems to be cloggage that happens with that bottom portion a lot. So, but yeah, I think that, if we can do something to enhance this in the short term, I think even, I want to say that the concrete pathway that goes into it might even be uneven in this area. So I think it needs a little bit of work. I understand not, wanting to do a ton of work because it's just going to get torn up and we don't even know what the plan is. But I always have concerns when I see, a walkway that's not in good use. So I just want to flag that for the city. And some more art. That'd be great too. Thanks.
Okay, that'll take us to site number 11. Turn your microphone on for us.
I apologize. 444 South Santa Fe Avenue, east side of South Santa Fe Avenue, Equihomie Street roundabout, approximately 0.81 acres.
Deputy Mayor.
I do want to say that I did have communication with a developer, and I think, other, I'm not sure if other council members had communication with this developer as well. But the folks from Found Loft, this is very close to their development. Now, they showed me a rendering of like an outdoor retail pop-up situation that was actually really cool. The one thing is just that, again, I'm really not in favor of selling land, but if there's some kind of revenue sharing that we could do, or some kind of, collaboration where we still retain ownership, this is right now kind of just like a hole in our downtown area. What is this, C? So yeah, I would be interested in seeing what kind of collaboration we could have with some of the stakeholders, even 508 Taverns there. I just really wouldn't want to sell the property, but figure out a way to retain ownership and enhance it for the public.
I would agree with you. I'd be interested to pursue the proposed use, at least to explore it, that Tideline Partners presented. And I know there was discussion of potential for a swap of land. I would consider all options here. And I would be open. I'm not sure if it was the swap that was on this property or another, but if somebody wanted to trade us a more usable piece of land or one that was more suitable for other purposes for the public, then I certainly would look at trading commercial land for more usable public spaces if it was an equivalent trade. So, Councilmember O'Donnell?
everything. And yeah, to find a revenue sharing aspect without selling the parcel, I think would be a fantastic idea. I just want to comment on this space because there's been so much work done on Santa Fe, and every time I drive by or walk by this space, it pains me to see it because of all that has been done to try and beautify this area and really rejuvenate that entire corridor of the city. So I would love to see something done sooner rather than later with this. I would love to explore a revenue option, though, or a revenue sharing option to try and activate this space as quickly as we can.
Deputy Mayor.
And Mayor Franklin, I just want to speak to the point that you made about land swap. I think we're going to be looking at that next on number 11, which is the southwest corner of Guajome Street and Mercantile Street. Is that 12? 12, yeah, sorry. We're on 11. 12, the next one. So I do have some comments about that. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Councilmember O'Donnell, that it is a little painful just to see this gouge, right? And then it really demarcates, this beautiful section that's getting redeveloped, and then it just stops. And then there's kind of like these older uses. So to have something that really pops out in a good way and not in a bad way, and doing that faster, I think, it could really be helpful to figure that out. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
And I just think it also invites people, so like you have 508 right there, but one of the things that kind of hampers, and we're going to talk about this in another parcel, but there isn't a lot of foot traffic down there. So if we can find something to get more foot traffic down there and use a space that is amenable to both parties and be able to utilize it to create some revenue source for the city, I think is great. But I think it is a genuine benefit to activate it for all the small businesses and storefronts that are down there, or the ones that we hope to bring into our city. And it shows our investment in them just as they've invested in our communities. So,
Councilmember Melendez.
Great discussion, everyone. I think that this is one of those parcels where we can be creative. I know throughout this conversation, I've also expressed that I am a defender of public land, and I want to retain public land as much as possible. I'm going to give myself a opportunity to have a more dynamic argument here and recognize that if we were to sell the property and convert it into private use, it might be developed on a faster time frame. This is, the gap in the beautiful Santa Fe corridor here is publicly owned land. So we're the ones failing at the congruency here, right? So I would be first and foremost interested in seeing if there was some sort of leasing arrangement or revenue sharing opportunity, because I do believe in the retention of public land. And I also think that is a way to, like Councilmember O'Donnell said, invest, right? All of these surrounding property owners and business owners have invested so much into enhancing our Santa Fe area. Is there something that we as a city can offer to the downtown specific plan on this portion of Santa Fe, while retaining the public land to make this area better, make it more congruent? So there's kind of two sides of the coin for me. On one hand, privatizing this space does allow, opportunity for it to be advanced in development as fast as the market provides. We lose local control in that sense, right? And the opportunity to be creative of what we want to do, it really falls into someone else's hands. But then on the other side, this is an opportunity for us to invest in those businesses and beautify that space so that, hey, not only is the public benefiting from something that's publicly accessible, but our local private business owners are also benefiting as well.
Okay, this is at the southwest corner of Guajome Street and Mercantile, intended land use, public parking.
All right, same comments that I had about the other public parking. I'm totally okay with this being public parking if there is just a smidge of green space. This is also something that the developer showed us in a few different renderings, that went in tandem with the previous 444 South Santa Fe Avenue lot. I think, being able to have a little bit of green space here on the corner. If there's parking, I would only say that's acceptable if there is a solar component to it. And, we nerded out a little bit when we were talking about it because the Inland Rail Trail is going to go through here. And again, we're talking about, can there be EV charging? Can there be e-bike charging? Right? Can there even be, I've seen in other cities where they have public use air pumps even, and different tools for bikes. So, can this be an area that is not only for cars, but has different uses, some green space, solar, charging, and potentially, some public features for folks that are going to be utilizing the Inland Rail Trail with their bicycles. So I would be, in favor of this site having all those uses combined. But if there's no solar, then you don't get the rest of it from me, so.
Yeah, the conversations that we had with the developer, I loved the ideas that they had as far as rail trails concerned. I 100% agree with that. I would like to see it, to a micro aspect, maybe even try and put like a last mile aspect in here because you have public transit available, you have the Inland Rail Trail available, you can do EV charging, you can create even small spaces for people to enjoy green space. It really does also enhance and strengthen the economic aspects of our Santa Fe corridor for the businesses that are down there. So there are so many things. So this is one of those spaces that I would be strongly in favor of creating parking, again, with solar, with EV charging, with all the things that I would want to see there. But I think it really does enhance both the makeup and the footprint of the area. It allows greater access to the trail, public transportation, but it also really does strengthen the economic aspects for the businesses that are there. So that's all.
You tugged at my heartstrings there with first last mile. That's really good. I've seen in other cities, Oceanside, Chula Vista, City of San Diego. Is it PB or OB that has one? I always get that one mixed up. But they have these little shuttles that are that first last mile solution, and they're relatively inexpensive to use, and you can hail them down physically or with an app, right? So it'd be interesting to see if we could build something like that into our city, because we do see a downtown that is spread out in an interesting way, right? We have this wing of the downtown that we're looking at right now, but then it goes into the city center and in Main Street, and then it also dips down at Sinopolis. So I think it would be great to be able to move people in one of these EVs that are street legal and don't go more than 25 miles per hour. But because this is a situation here where these streets are connected with roads that are 35 miles per hour or less, that we could probably have a really cool first last mile solution for folks. And I can even see folks, potentially utilizing this to, go to the grocery store, because we did lose that Vons. And so the nearest grocery store is a little bit further. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a really interesting idea, and I like it.
I'll definitely continue to support parking that is structured with some sort of solar component, and also include, especially since this is along the rail trail for cyclists, some very functional bicycle parking or storage. I've seen some cool examples of bicycle storage. You want people to feel secure if they're going to leave their bicycle and explore our downtown for a little while and then get back up on their bike and go to San Marcos or Oceanside or what have you. In regards to first and last mile and short route shuttle service, there are more and more cities that are looking at those opportunities. I think that City of Oceanside has an interesting model where there's kind of three partners. There's a business conglomerate, there's the City of Oceanside, and there's the Sandag that are all contributing to the cost of that shuttle service, and it is beneficial for economic development. It reduces people's need to park in front of a particular business because you're able to get mobility throughout the whole area. So that's definitely an innovative solution. And if we are interested and open to this site being used for parking, then it could have multiple uses, right? It could be, there could be a turnaround development within the area for rideshare component as well. Lots of different opportunities there. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I don't want to put rain on this parade right now, but I would be concerned about people parking from residential areas here and not having the space utilized for the intended purpose of the parking. So I would just want to make sure that we have some safety net built in. Not that people can't be parking there, but just that it's not continuously absorbed for the intended use.
I support all the additions to the enhancements to the parking use that you suggested. And I think the parking is important to activate that area, at least at this point. Might have a future use. Okay, site number 13.
Okay, this is 0.09 acres at the west side of South Santa Fe, south of Terrace. Currently no intended land use.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, this is an interesting little gap too. I mean, I feel like it might even lend itself to a little dog run, because you do have a little bit more density that's been built around this area. So I think anything other than vacant land at this point would be better. So maybe there is the potential to have a little dog run in this area. But other than that, I can't think of anything else outside of, a little bit more open space.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
This may be a spot I'm willing to sell if it were for the right thing. But I think a dog run is actually, with the density that's gone in there and the proposed density for future projects, having a space for people to take their dogs, I think is actually an excellent idea, especially located in an area where there's not a lot of spaces available. So there's very few uses I can see with this other than that, though. So I appreciate your comments.
Councilmember Melendez.
I tend to agree with you, Councilmember O'Donnell. Could this very, very teeny tiny publicly owned portion be absorbed into another private residence through purchase and have a greater benefit to them? And would we be missing out on a lot if we did that? We would be missing out on 0.09 acres. So those are the facts of the situation. And I wouldn't want to exclude this parcel from our Parks Master Plan discussion. So even though it doesn't have a specific usage and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot we can do with it, let's continue to insert it into that planning document so that we can at least keep our options open and study the area. We might learn from a study of the area and from community survey and what have you, that people are really desperate for some sort of natural or outdoor amenity.
Yeah, I would agree. This is uniquely located in a dense area, and I wouldn't be in a big rush to get rid of it just yet until we really think about what we want to do with it. And so parks, public housing, there's all kinds of things there, but I think there's something valuable to be done with it. Seeing no other comments on that, that'll take us to our last property, number 14.
Yes, this consists of two parcels totaling 0.16 acres on the north side of South Santa Fe at the Paula Vista roundabout.
So initially, this is a parcel that I talked to our previous city manager about because it really is part of this gateway and entrance into our downtown. And, you know, that arch right there was like $350,000. So I feel, you know, maybe there's some other uses, but this would be a great biodiversity hotspot area where you could have some beautiful color palette with native plants and a place for folks to sit down and you know, maybe they just grab some mariscos from the restaurant right down there and you know, sit down and have a good time. And there's also not too far from here is Wakeland, the Grove, which is senior housing. And I do have a concern that, you know, they don't really have within walking distance a lot of access to open space. So maybe this is a potential for them to have a community garden. Maybe it's a potential, you know, to have a community garden in a biodiversity hotspot and just kind of enhance it visually as part of this gateway. And I see that this picture was taken before the traffic circle was completed. So that's interesting. That was a whole thing. Is the land actually, the usable land still that square, or is it a little bit less?
It's a little bit less because the
Right.
roundabout takes up part of that piece.
So is the 0.16, is that accurate, or is it actually a little bit less than that?
It's probably closer to 0.12.
Okay, not too far off. 0.12, yeah, I don't know if this could be affordable housing, if it's large enough for something like that. But if not, I think it would be a great park that's a gateway to this portion of our downtown.
Do we know anything about the, I know that the parcel next door is for sale. Have we had any proposals to develop that parcel?
No. Parcels for sale for a lot is what I understand, and so there hasn't been any interest at this point.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, Councilmember O'Donnell.
I would say just maybe open the conversation to see. They might want to sell it for less expensive, you know. But I will echo all of you. I am very open to whatever we do with this, but I'm going to just say the same thing I said before. For this to be the gateway into this corridor and to see this, and it's unfortunate. I know it's not to the fault of anybody on this dais. It's just a matter of just trying to make sure that if we can get this renovated or developed in some fashion, whether it's a park, or whether it's housing, whether it's whatever it is, would really do a lot to beautify and justify all the work that has gone into this corridor.
Councilmember Melendez.
Yeah, I would say with this parcel, out of all the other parcels in the downtown area, is really important to prioritize beautification since it is one of the first sites that you see. That can take many different forms, but any kind of natural amenities there would be a little bit more superficial. It looks like that area is already paved, and it doesn't mean it can't be a nice pedestrian-friendly plaza or have beautiful landscaping included in it. But I think the priority for me would be some sort of public amenity that is beautifying that space.
Okay, seeing no other requests to speak, do we have any other public speakers for public comment? Very good. We are adjourned.